Episode 179, How to Deal with Performance Nerves with Shelly Townsend.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
Anyone who has ever had to get up in front of a group, either for a performance or to give a talk at church, has felt the nerves that inevitably come up. Coach Shelly Townsend coaches performers not to help them eliminate their nerves, but to help them learn how to manage them. Whether you are a seasoned performer or just someone sharing with others, being authentic and bringing who you are to the moment is the best way to perform and what is needed. If you would like help in learning how to manage your nerves for an upcoming performance, or even to give a lesson at church, reach out to Shelly and let her help you. Enjoy this episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm happy to be joined today by Coach Shelly Townsend. Hey, Shelly.
Hello.
How you doing?
Oh, great to be here. Thanks. Yeah, happy.
It's so good to have you here with me. You have not been on before, so I am excited to have this conversation, get to know you better myself, but also for people to get to hear from you. Will you just go ahead and give us an introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a certified coach through the Coach firm, and I've also been an actor for 30 years. And I also, because I assume your listeners are LDS, they will be familiar with EFY and FSY. So my husband and I have been session directors for both of those for about 10 years. It's pretty much the highlight of our summer every year that we get to do it. So I love working with youth, love working with young adults as well. I have 3 daughters, and they are all technically old enough to be out of the house. We have our oldest living with us right now with
That's
her
not how it
baby.
goes anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just not how it is.
Yeah. Yes. But yes, so technically we're empty nesters, but our oldest is with us with her husband and our grandbaby who we actually just love so much.
So fun.
And my youngest daughter is actually an actor as well. So that is one of the reasons that I chose to get into coaching actors and performers, because I've spent her whole life basically. She started when she was about 5. So I've been basically coaching her all the way through. She's 19 now. So coaching her all the way through her just auditions, jobs, being on set, and acting and performing really takes a strong mindset. So yeah, that's why I love doing it. And other than that, hobbies, like I love to cook. I have tried probably every like elimination diet or specialty diet on the planet. So like if you ever need to compare recipes, I mean, we're talking paleo and AIP and vegan and plant-based and gluten-free. And so, yeah. So I love to do that. And my degree is actually in photography. So
Well, you seem like you'd like to dabble in lots of different things then, photography, acting, cooking, all
yeah,
the things.
and anything creative.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I have not had anybody on before who would call themselves an actor. So this is fun. This will be a fun twist on some of the things that we like to talk about here. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we get to have it. I think a lot of people, performers, actors, seem like confident people. And you had just said it's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of probably resilience and, I don't know, self-confidence. We would think self-confidence, but they are just people, I'm assuming you would say, like the rest of us. So how are the tools of coaching helpful in allowing them to excel at their craft or at your craft, the thing that you like to do?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've been an actor for 30 years, and like we're not always full of confidence and poise. I can remember the last callback I had when was it, last week, I was still like really nervous. I think the problem was I had to actually wait for a while before I went into the audition room.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still feel the nerves. I still feel the nerves. And, it's interesting. There are a lot of famous actors still. I watched this interview with Octavia Spencer once, who she openly admits that she still has stage fright. And she talks about how she will not do like stage or live anymore. Even like a 30-minute like sitcom that has a live audience, she won't do that anymore because she's just too scared to do things live, and
Yeah.
she prefers to be on set, where there's take one, take two, take three, in
Right.
case something happens or she flubs a word. But she did say something really interesting too in that interview. The interviewer was like, "Oh, this is so like crazy that you have this stage fright." And he's like, "It's like a pilot who might have a fear of flying, And when you put it that way, she was like, "Oh, that's kind of scary." But she said, he goes, "Why did you choose to go into acting despite the fear?" And she said, "Because if you have a fear and you don't push past it, you'll never accomplish anything." Which is so true, right, for all of us. But she didn't talk about how she personally pushes through it. But as far as what I do, it's a lot of breathing, like deep breathing. In fact, I had this callback once in Atlanta. So I am in North Carolina, so it's a 4-hour drive to Atlanta. This is before the pandemic when all callbacks used to be in person. So I drove to Atlanta that morning, and Atlanta, there was traffic. I think it was raining and I was running late. And that's probably like one of the cardinal rules of acting is like if you're on time, you're late, right? So
Mm.
10 to 15 minutes, you need to be there before. And so I was super stressed out and I knew I was going to be late, tried to get hold of my agent, tried to get a hold of casting director, couldn't get hold of anyone right in that moment. So I did the best I could to get there. But of course, I've got all this piled on top of me, right, in my head. I'm just like, oh, I've got a callback and, like producers are going to be there and I'm late and this is so bad. And so fortunately, casting directors are always on the side of the actor. And so I got there and she said, just take a minute, just take a minute. And I remember just standing there, it was an industrial area, and just looking out the window and watching a smokestack come out of some factory and just watching it like, come up in the air and deep breathing and just really trying to just ground and center myself and be present. And it doesn't always happen this way, but I did end up booking the job, which is really nice. And this callback that I just had, same thing, just nerves because I was just waiting for so long, I think. But it's a lot of grounding techniques, like that 5 4 3 2 1 technique. If you've heard of that one, just like 5 things you can see, and then name 4 things you can hear, and 3 things you can feel, and 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste, just really to bring you in the present moment. So you're
Mhm.
not so much in your head. And then just processing the emotion, being like, well, I am nervous, and that's okay, right? It's just normal. It's
Yes.
totally normal to be nervous, and it's okay. And just allowing yourselves to feel it and just knowing like it's okay to feel this way. It's not going to hurt me. We're good. All the positive self-talk, all the positive
Yeah.
self-talk.
Yeah.
So,
I Hearing you describe all those things are so useful, certainly for actors, but extremely useful for those of us who aren't actors but like in anything. I'm thinking of athletes, I'm thinking about, students, I'm thinking about standing in front of a congregation and giving a talk, right? Like
yeah,
those are
yeah,
things that are so useful in so many ways.
yeah, totally. And, especially because you mentioned church, I feel like even when we're brought up in primary, right? We're given talks when we're like
Mhm.
5, right? It's a church of performance in a way. And now with the changes in that they've made with youth giving more lessons and all of that, we as a people are in front of people a lot presenting things.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, all of these tools are so helpful for even in academics, like you talk about, when you hear about the kids that are great students, do well in class, but then they go and they take the standardized test and they bomb. They don't do well. Right? All of these like mindfulness, grounding techniques, positive self-talk, positive mantras are so very, very helpful. And just going back to the church thing, I was thinking of a client that I had who had just gotten off her mission, and she was called to be the Relief Society president in the YSA ward. And she was very, very, very overwhelmed. And, of course, all the stories, right? All the stories like, I can't do this, or like people in the bishopric are judging me, and they're watching my every move and I'm not doing it right, and coached her. And she came to the realization she had never been coached before, but she realized like, oh, like I don't have to be like a prisoner to those thoughts. And oh, like I can actually choose to like not struggle with those things. And it's the same thing, I think, even if we have a certain calling in church and we think, oh, I'm not qualified to do that. Like that's just like, why did they even call me to do this? And so a part of that with grounding ourselves is also recognizing the stories that we're telling ourselves and challenging them and having awareness, right? And realizing that we have the power to choose. If you look up thoughts, I think it's in one of the resources in the LDS library. I don't know if it's like topics or something like that, but it specifically says in there about how we have the ability and the agency to choose our thoughts. And I think that's a really powerful thing. I don't think we talk about that enough in church, that we have the ability to choose our thoughts. And I believe God really wants us to. I believe that's one of the reasons why we're here on this earth, is to learn how to use our agency and learn how to control our mind, learn how to not just be, I guess Elder Bednar would say, not acted upon, right? But be the one that's actively working. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've said this a lot lately on the podcast, but agency really starts with our thoughts. And I think so many times we think of agency as being in our actions, which it is, but those actions started way before we physically did something. It started when we chose to think a certain way about a situation.
Right.
And so it is at the very root of the gospel, because agency is a deeply rooted doctrine of our gospel, and one of the most, for me, my most loved things about it, right, is learning about that and knowing that our Heavenly Father wants us to use and practice our agency.
Right, right. And how empowering is it, right? To be able
For
to
sure.
just know and then practice and realize that you can do it. I was talking to somebody else and helping her with some of her courses, and the way that she viewed her courses were actually for moms that are going to be giving birth soon, and just kind of the mindset and the way she approached it, which I don't argue with her, but that, most of us just feel our feelings first. Like we don't recognize that there is a thought that actually preceded that feeling, but the feelings and the emotions are always so in our face that we don't, I think, feel like we have control over them. But once we realize that we have the agency, right, to choose our thoughts, and then our thoughts inform those feelings and emotions, like it's so empowering to know that you can just change like so much in your life. You can change this trajectory of your life. You can change like what you can do in life with that ability.
Yeah, I want to circle back to what you had said about, was it Octavia, that you said
Yeah.
she has this immense stage fright, but she no longer she doesn't do live things anymore. And I think that's a perfect example of, she is using her agency to choose. Like on one hand, she uses her agency to choose thoughts to help her move through and be able to do something that she really wants to do. But on the other hand, there is something that she really doesn't care that much about. Like, she obviously doesn't care that much about doing in-person things. So she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and I'm going to use my agency to be okay in not doing this thing.
Yeah.
So I love that it's both sides, right? We
You're
can
right.
use it to do something, and we can use it not to do something, and to be
Right.
okay with not doing it.
Right. And we don't have to, what I call like bright side ourselves into thinking that we have to do something. She obviously is very successful and can make
Yes.
money doing what she's doing, so she can make that choice, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really important to know that we have that choice as well. Yeah,
Yeah. I
absolutely.
just thought that was interesting. Okay, so sometimes people get overwhelmed, and I'm assuming as an actor, and I know, like, as I look at athletes and the things that my kids have tried to do in their life, when we get overwhelmed, we don't always give our best performance. So why does that happen? And how do you coach your clients on performing to the best of their ability?
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it comes down to we're too worried about the outcome
Hmm.
and not about the process. There was this interesting study done in a book called More Than a Body. I don't know if you've read
Yes,
that.
I've read.
Yes,
I love the
love
book.
it.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. But they talk about this study that was done where they had two groups of women, and they had the one group of women try on a swimsuit before they took a math test. And then another group of women try on a sweater before they took the math test. And the women that tried on the sweaters did better on math tests than the women who tried on the swimsuits. And so the point of the study and what they were trying to prove is that when we are so preoccupied with our appearance and how we look, and like we're in our heads, it prevents us from performing to the best of our ability, right? You only have so much brain space. And if part of that space is preoccupied with, I can't do this, basically, or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or whatever that negative thought is, it takes up space from you actually doing the task at hand, right? I have a YouTube channel where I combine my love of acting with movies, and I use short little clips from movies and pair them with a mindset lesson. And one of the clips that I love to use, even in coaching, is from Empire Strikes Back. And it's the scene where Luke is with Yoda in the swamp. I'm assuming I'm not giving anything away because everybody's seen this movie, right? I'm not spoiling
Yes.
anything for anyone.
Yeah, no. It's an old classic. If people haven't seen it, then that's probably too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. So anyway, Luke's ship is like stuck in the swamp, and he's his skills, his Jedi skills are still new, and Yoda's challenging him to whatever they do, Yoda mind tricks to, you know, Jedi mind tricks to get it out of the swamp. And it's interesting to watch their dialogue because Luke is just like, I can't, it's too big, and Yoda's coming back at him, and and I loved how, oh, it's just such great gospel application. But Yoda says, we are not, he starts poking at him, and we're not this crude matter. He says, luminous beings are we, and he just so great in terms of like our potential, our eternal potential, and that we're really children of God. But in the very end, Luke tries to get it out, and it's starting to rise, and it falls back, and he just comes back to Yoda, and he's like, I can't do it. And then Yoda, of course, does it. And Luke comes up and he's like, I don't believe it. And then Yoda like drops the mic, and he's just like, that is why you fail, and that just is such an important thing for us to have this belief that we can even do it. So if we're talking about athletics, or we're talking about acting, we're talking about singing or performing, or, academics, it really comes down to that root belief, that growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, really, that, we can do these things. It's the same thing, like, I think writers that get writer's block, right? Or they just
Yeah.
stare at a page and think that they have to do it perfectly. And very often advice for writers is just get it down, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get something down. So in coaching, I think it's a lot. I think it really depends on the person that's being coached, whether it's an actor or a writer or an athlete. I think, there are slightly different things that they can be coached on. And I think it depends on really where they are, I guess, most lacking or where they need to kind of build their awareness. But I was actually coaching another client who is in college and she's wanting to do art for her major. And it was very interesting because she's the type of girl. And I think in our church, right, we're always taught to be obedient, right? Absolute perfect obedience and follow the rules and all of that. Well, it was interesting. She told me that her professor was teaching her in her art to push past restrictions. And I thought for her, she's probably having this really hard time going, wait. And, what am I supposed to do? And she's always been one, I think, that tended towards wanting to kind of people please and do what she was told. And what I was coaching her on is she did this one project and she was talking about how she'd have so much anxiety. And we boiled it down to that she was having a lot of anxiety when she was even creating her art because she was worried about trying to do what the professor wanted. And they'd have a guest artist and trying to do what she thought they wanted. And so I asked her, and I said, I'm just going to let you think about this. But do you think that in trying to do what your professor wants, you are in essence putting restrictions on your art? It's very hard to be creative in any way when you're trying to please somebody else. Of course, we create art for people. We're not on an island, but there is something to be said. It's the same thing as an actor when you are trying so hard in an audition to do what you think they want. And once again, like the math test, that like that's my personal swimsuit, analogy, that part of my brain that's trying to do it like they want it takes away from the creative brain, takes away from just letting you be free and letting you be present. So I think
Which
it's
has
all
got
of
to be
those things.
tricky
It is
because
tricky.
obviously, like when you're trying out for a part, like there is a certain way they want you to perform, right? They're looking for something in particular.
It's interesting. Sometimes they don't know what they're looking for,
Okay, that's a good point.
and they're waiting for you to make creative choices and be like, oh yeah, I really like that. So a lot of times I'll get an audition and it'll have a character description or it'll have stage directions. And many acting coaches will tell you, disregard those. Disregard those. Because once again, it's like that swimsuit effect, right? It takes
Right.
you out of your creative brain and gets you trying to do something for someone else, trying to meet an expectation that may or may not be there.
It
Yeah,
just really backs up that we just all need to be us, our own individual, and be that to the best we can be because it might show somebody exactly what they're looking for, right? It might show somebody a better way to do something, but when we try to be somebody else, we are never ever showing up. Or when we try to do what we think somebody wants us to do, we're never showing up as us. And that really is hard.
it is hard. It is hard.
And
For sure.
eventually, I think the most success we will find is when we are truly being what is us and not in trying to be somebody else. And
Absolutely.
that's something that I think can be we have to be patient in doing that and knowing that success will come, but we got to be us.
Right. I think most of us probably spend a lot of our lives, right, learning how to be authentic and being okay with it,
Yeah.
right? Not worrying about what other people think. So,
Yeah. The
yeah,
okay piece is I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Because if we're not okay with it, we don't truly explore who we are. But a lot of times when we figure that out, we're still not okay with it because we're afraid of what it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is. Life is a journey.
Yeah, yes, it is. Okay, so this is actually leads me perfectly into my next question, because I think as parents or people who are leading and helping youth in this world, whether it's in a church calling or within our own particular homes, we are always wanting to help them learn how to be themselves or how
Yeah.
to show up to the best of their ability. But then specifically, what can we do as parents to help youth step into their talents and have confidence during performances, whatever that performance might be for them, right? Because it's going to be different for everybody. We're
Right,
all performing in different ways.
right. Just my experience with working with youth with EFY and FSY, like my heart is just so bound to them because I've seen so many of them struggle with confidence. And of course, they have all of these things in this day and age that we never had to deal with. Social media being one of them that really chips away at their confidence level. And also just having a daughter that's an actor as well. I would say that one of the best things that we can do as parents is just be like their biggest cheerleader and supporter, because very often, right, they have the negative self-talk running in the background. That's not their best
Mhm.
cheerleader and supporter.
Mhm.
Um, we have actually in our living room, like, I guess they're sayings, they're kind of like lessons that we've told our daughters over the years. And there's like a series of 12 of them. They're each in their own frame, and we've got them on this wall. And so, like, have a family motto or family mantras. One of the ones that we have on there is beauty, and then it's the not equal sign. So beauty doesn't equal worth. And that's something that I've tried to tell them their whole lives, especially because they all modeled when they were younger, and now the oldest is acting as well. So we have on there like eat a fruit or veggie. That was something that we always told them with every meal, eat a fruit or veggie. What's your fruit or veggie? And we've got this great one that my husband's talked about a lot that says there's a story that goes with it, but the saying is give everyone an A. So it's basically giving everyone the benefit of the doubt
Mhm.
and not being judgmental. There's a family that I know, or several families that I know, that have come up with a family mantra and will recite it, like with morning and evening prayer. And so I think those can be very powerful, right? It's just helping them exercise and practice those positive thoughts so that in times when they're struggling, maybe that you never know, those things will pop up and give them strength. Texting them, leaving notes in their lunch, I mean, all those wonderful things. I know my daughters have really cherished notes that we've left them and have kept them on bulletin boards and things like that. But it's also, I think, helping them know like who they really are. And President Nelson gave an address once. I think it was actually to the young adults, but he was talking about how important it was or is for them to really know who they are. And then everything else kind of falls into place, right? So there were like three things that he talked about. And one was knowing that you're a child of God. The other thing was knowing that you're a child of the covenant. And the third thing was knowing that you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. And I have this quote from that talk because it's so good. But he just says, tonight I plead with you not to replace these three paramount and unchanging identifiers with any others, because doing so could stymie your progress or pigeonhole you in a stereotype that could potentially thwart your eternal progression. And we talk a lot about fixed mindset and growth mindset, right? But I think
Mhm.
this is actually one thing that it would be helpful to have a fixed mindset on, right? To really know that that is what you are.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. Even my youngest daughter, like I said, she's been acting since she was 5, but there was a period in that tween stage where she really struggled with her self-esteem. And fortunately for her, she took a step back because she realized it just was too much for her. But it's hard, isn't it, as a parent when you can see like how much potential they have and your heart just aches because they can't see it, and you just want so badly for them to believe in themselves the same way you believe in them, in the same way, Heavenly Father believes in them. But sometimes there's only so much that you can do as a parent. So that's where coaching comes into play. I mean, that's why any of us do coaching as adults too, because we have certain blind spots, right, that we can't see.
It is tricky. Parents, like we do, we love them so much and we just want them to be happy and find the things that bring them peace and joy in their life. We have to be able to remove ourselves from what we think they should be doing, because we don't know. But I think so we have to do our own work there to be able to remove ourselves and let them be them and let us be us and let them figure out who they truly are, and we get to support them on that.
Absolutely. I think that's what you just summarized is exactly what our Heavenly Father does for us, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He guides, but he watches. He watches us make mistakes. He
Yep.
knows we'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
Because
Yeah,
he's never going to leave us there, right? I think that's the
right.
piece that we get to. Yes, he watches us, those things happen, and he's always with us. He's always our biggest cheerleader, our
Yeah,
biggest fan, always trying to prove to us that we're capable of whatever comes our way, that we are so much more capable than we think we are.
absolutely. We are. Absolutely.
What So
Yeah.
good. All right, I
Yeah.
imagine that there may be some listeners here who really fear having to perform by maybe giving a talk or teaching a lesson or giving an impromptu testimony, right? There's so many ways that we are in front of people in our religion, which I think is amazing. First of all, like I look at, I've been in the primary for the last year and watching these kids come up and give talks, and where else in the world do they have that opportunity when they're
Yeah.
5 and 6 years old
Yeah.
to kind of gain that experience? But
Yeah.
how might you coach somebody through those fears of giving a talk,
Yeah.
sharing a testimony? Maybe we talked about this a little bit, but is there anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, I probably would. And you're right. Just because we've done it ever since we're 5 doesn't mean that we're comfortable doing it, right?
Right,
There's
for sure.
plenty of people that get up or they're like, oh no, Bishop just called me up. It's the last minute and I need to go up there. Yeah, I think once again, I would reiterate that it's just normal to have feelings of being nervous. Self-compassion is something that I think most of us could do a better job of engendering and building in ourselves, and just being kind, talking to ourselves the way that our best friend would, patting ourselves on the shoulder and being like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You're totally normal for being nervous. So I think that's one of the biggest things, because we as just people, right? We don't like the way nervousness feels. It's uncomfortable. And so we try to like shut it out, right? I don't want to feel nervous. I can't feel nervous. I can't. But in doing that, we actually make it harder to overcome the feeling in the first place. So just telling ourselves it's normal, being compassionate, it's okay to feel nervous. And there was a study that was actually done that said that, so we know that feeling of nervous has come from a thought, right? And maybe the thought is like, oh no, I'm going to screw this up, right? And so then the nervous thought comes in. But we know that once that thought comes in, there's a chemical reaction which causes that feeling or that emotion. And studies have shown that chemical reaction only lasts like 90 to 120 seconds, believe it or not.
It
So
feels like an eternity, but
it
yes.
feels like an eternity. I mean, if it keeps coming back, it's because you keep having that thought, right? So it does take practice to like process that emotion, but just knowing that, at least for me, tells me like I don't have to be scared of like what I think are big emotions or negative emotions or things that feel uncomfortable, because it's not going to last forever and it's not going to hurt me. So I think that's a big part of it. I think it's also having this mindset anytime you're giving a talk or you're in a calling or whatever it is, that like Heavenly Father wants you to do a good job. And it's not about you, right? It's really about the message and it's really about Him and it's really about building His kingdom and, serving those in the ward or whoever it is that you're speaking to. It really isn't about you. And I would say most of the time, no one's thinking it's about you either. Right? So I think those things are probably basic things that people can do to
Mhm.
remind themselves if they ever
Mhm.
get nervous, having to
Yeah.
do all the things that we do in our church.
Yeah. Super, super easy things too, right? Like just acknowledge it. I think just giving it a name. Oh, I'm feeling nervous, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
And the second was, it's not about me, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's not about me. It's about love.
Hmm.
It's about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that takes pressure off even in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Anytime we take it away from us,
Absolutely.
which is so funny that we do
Yeah.
that. But that's just what we do. We make everything about us.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
Human nature.
Yeah, it is for sure. Well, Shelly, this has been really, I think, helpful for in so many ways, in whatever way that we are out in the world, because we're all out in the world doing something that seems visible to other people
Hmm.
and can be frightening and can cause us to stop. And it is that one foot in front of the other that we're after. It's the progression because our souls seek that, whether we know it or not. Our bodies and souls and spirits want to progress. And so this is one of those things we get to work through so that we can. So thank you for
Yeah.
being here and helping us in our progression, helping us to
Oh,
move through our uncomfortable zones in our life, which are many.
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so
This
fun.
is
Before
good.
we go, can you share with people where they can find more of you?
Yes. So, like I had mentioned, my YouTube channel, which is Coach with Shelly, and I drop a new lesson on Mondays. They're called Mindset Mondays, and they're super short. I've done that on purpose. They're usually 2 minutes or less, or 2.5 minutes or less. So, just a quick, like, little mindset lesson to start your week. And I will always give a challenge at the end of those lessons. So if you feel like you are not quite ready to jump into coaching one-on-one with a coach, you can kind of have a little coaching lesson yourself every Monday. So
Yeah.
if you want to do
But
the
what a
work
great
yourself.
thing also, I'm sorry I'm jumping in, but what a great
Yeah.
thing that you could even just do with your family, right? Oh,
Oh,
look, watch,
yeah.
because you said that you mix them with video clips, is that
Yes.
right? Movie clips.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so keeping our kids engaged is usually easier, more easily done with visuals, right? So,
Absolutely.
excuse me.
Absolutely. There you go. Your easy family home evening every Monday. I
Yeah,
didn't do
I
Monday
just
on purpose, but
I just think it's a great way to teach your kids some of these tools. So anyway, I'm
yeah.
glad you do that.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah, thanks. And also on Instagram, I'm coach.with.shelly, but the link I'm sure will be in the show notes.
We'll link it.
And my website will be in the show notes as well. And I do offer what I call detox session, D dash talks. This is just my complimentary part sort of discovery call and part detox of the mind. So that's available. There are links in my Instagram and links on my website. And I do actually have a top 5 things I do to calm my nerves free guide. So that link will be in the show notes as well.
Ooh, awesome. Great resources. And like once again, great for ourselves, but also great for our families and for our kids. So thank you for giving us tools to take home
Yeah.
to our
Yeah.
people because we all need them.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Shelley.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.